Welcome to our tutorial about the data reader. In this tutorial, we'll pick up where we left off in our previous tutorial. Let's start by running our application. The page loads. As you see here, we get data from the last name and the first name columns of the user table. We combine them together and we put them in a drop-down list. Let's go back to our program. On our page, we use a drop-down list control or a list box named LST user. Let's go to our code page. You'll see some familiar code from previous tutorials, such as the string variable myConnectionString. Also, the SQL connection class. Here's the open method to open the database. If I scroll down, we'll also see the close method to close the database connection. First, in the page load event procedure, we incorporate an if procedure and use the isPostBack method to determine if the page load event occurred as a result of the first load or as a result of the postback. If the page load event procedure is not a result of the postback, we created a function called fillUsersList. Right here, this function will be executed. Let's see how it works. First, we use a line of code to clear all items from the list box. Secondly, we use the SQL connection class to establish a connection with the database, as we did in our previous tutorial. Next, we need an SQL statement to select which information we want from our database. And we need a command object to execute the SQL statement. To accomplish both of these tasks, we're going to incorporate the SQL command object here. You may already recognize the SQL select statement from previous tutorials in this course. We're retrieving all columns from our table. The second argument in my constructor is myConnection. Here above, I show different examples of the select statement. Here I'm selecting only the first line, last name, and user ID columns. We can basically replace the select statement here with the string variable. Next, we created a data reader object. This object lets you quickly retrieve all of your results from a database. Data Reader uses a live connection with the database. It should be closed after it completes its function. As you see here, I close the Data Reader and then I close the database connection next. The Data Reader is very simple and straightforward. It gives you fast-forward read-only access. And that's all we need in this case. Before we can use the data reader, we need to open the connection. Next, we need to use the executeReader method of the SQL command object to create the data reader. Next, we're going to run a do-while loop until the read function of the data reader returns a Boolean value of false. What we're doing essentially is reading the database row by row and adding retrieved data to our list box item collection. Let's run our application again, and then we're going to look at the HTML code. Here is our list box. Now let's right-click and select View Source. Here is our code. Let's scroll down. Here's the HTML code beside the list box control. We store the user IDs in the value property of the list box. We're going to be using this property in our next tutorial. Okay, let's close this source code down. Now, let's incorporate the where clause in our statement. Let's incorporate it, let's say, where the user ID is less than 8. We'll run our application again. However, I see here that we only have 6 users displayed. We should have 7. Let's go to view our source code, scroll down. The reason we only have 6 instead of 7 is because we deleted our first record in a previous tutorial. Okay, let's go and sort our records now. I'm going to order by first name. And let's run the application again. And as you see, we've got our records sorted alphabetically by first name. If I go to the source code, scroll down, I see that the user ID is out of order. However, the first names are indeed organized alphabetically. And this concludes our tutorial about the data reader.